Hey, this is YC, and today's episode is called the PLR UTF-8 Conspiracy. So to begin with, PLRs, if you're in the blogosphere, are, my understanding is that they're articles that have been written as boilerplate content for your website that you can basically purchase cheaply, and then someone else has written them, and then you can augment them to be different. Like you can rewrite them, or you can basically just post them. But the idea, I think, of PLRs is that they get purchased by different people. So say, for instance, you have a website that's about shoes, and then you buy a PLR that has, like a 10-pack of articles about shoes, like basic articles, and you can sort of kickstart your website by having these articles. So the downside of PLRs is that they're used by everyone who purchases them. So it's kind of like they're public in the sense that, someone sells them and you buy them, but then other people buy them, and other people have the right to use them if they buy them. So it's not like you buy them and then they belong to you. They just belong to whoever buys them. So I've used them before, fairly extensively, I guess. I've used them a lot over the past few years, but they're not really like what I depend on for content. But I have experimented with them just to see what kind of quality writing you can get with a PLR. And sometimes the PLRs are actually quite well written, and they're quite affordable. So you get, you can pay like $15 for a 10-pack of articles about a given topic. So usually when you buy them from someone who's, selling a whole bunch of different topics, PLRs, and then you take your pick, whichever PLR you need for your specific blog, you purchase, and the rest may not apply to you, but you can buy, like I've bought several from the same seller before. But so I think it's pretty standard to use PLRs for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't know how to write at all, and they want to get some content really quickly on their blog, and it looks better than having nothing, I guess. So you can just buy some cheap PLRs or articles, PLR articles, and populate your website with those. So that's what, you maybe, if you're listening to this, you already know what those are. But so this conspiracy angle of this episode begins when I bought a certain PLRs from a certain website that was selling PLRs for pretty cheap, and I was finding that those PLRs were turning out to be unique content, as in, I guess that website was not that popular, or so it seemed, that when you bought the PLR, you could plagiarism check the PLR, and no one has previously used it on the web, or that's what it seemed like. So I was like, oh, nice. So these PLRs are not used yet. So I guess either this website's not popular, or this topic's not popular, or this PLR pack is not popular. So I lucked out and got some decently written content for basically, not very much money. And so that's 10 articles about such and such topic. And I was going to post them. I started posting them on my blog at the time, because I'm like, okay, well, I haven't covered these specific topics in this niche, so I'll just publish them. And that gives me some new content, and it looks pretty good. Add some pictures, and it looks pretty good on the blog, so great. But then the trouble started when I noticed that the articles, I kind of overlooked this, but I shouldn't have. But basically, there's these spelling errors kept popping up in my word processor, and I just was like, "What the fuck? These articles are, they're not spelled incorrectly. The sentences looked fine to me." And I was just like, okay, I guess my word processor is having a stroke here. So I guess it doesn't, I don't know what's going on with this. So I was merrily posting my articles that I got from this seller of these PLRs, and but these spelling errors kept coming back, and there was like, it just seemed like there was a lot of them, and on some of the articles, and I was just like, what the fuck? Why is there so many spelling errors when there don't appear to be any spelling errors? And it would pick up in WordPress too, I believe. Like you would just get like a red underline or something, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So I think I showed my friend one of the articles. I said, look at this article. Do you get spelling errors on this like I do? And he's like, yeah. And then I'm like, what do you think it means? He's like, I don't know. And then he kind of went off and did his thing. And then I think a day later he messaged me. He's like, wait a second, you know what this is? And I'm like, no, what is it? And he's like, well, the characters in the articles aren't UTF-8 characters. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And he said, oh, well, UTF-8 is like the, I guess, character set that is most used on like online or in the world or something. It's like the standard character set that people get their letters from. And I'm like, can you elaborate? And he's like, yeah, well, basically every letter has its own, it's like code, so when print goes on a blog, I guess it's not just a letter, it's like a character from a character set that is UTF-8. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So what the fuck is going on? He's just like, well, these are not UTF-8 characters. And I said, wait a minute. So that's why it's like triggering the spell checker. And I'm like, that makes sense. So I started looking at it. I'm like, and I started to notice that, I guess it was in WordPress maybe, that I started to notice that the R's or the S's or the A's or whatever character or the apostrophes wouldn't be, they wouldn't look normal. I started seeing them. I started going like, oh, I'm tripping out. Like, I'm starting to see these weird characters and going like, that's not an R. That's like is that like some other language or something? And then, so he checked that and he's like, yeah, these are all like non-standard characters. And I'm like, oh, so that's why it didn't, that's why it's triggering the spell checker. Well, that's strange. Why would there be non-standard characters in these articles? And then I went and like rewrote some of the content with normal UTF-8 characters and checked the plagiarism checker, and all of a sudden the plagiarism came up, and I'm like, oh, I see. So basically someone at some point in the, creating of these articles, changed the letters around so that they wouldn't seem like they were plagiarized or something. And so I'm like, what the fuck? Like, who would do that? So I thought, okay, well, so I changed a few more things, and I realized that like all the stuff that I thought wasn't plagiarized was actually plagiarized according to some SEO plagiarism checker. So I was like, fuck, okay, that means all this shit is A, not written in standard character set, and B, it's probably plagiarized as well. So that is bad. If you're in like SEO blogs, that plagiarism is like a no-no. So I went and emailed the person who sold me the PLR, and I said, hey, I kind of played dumb at first. I was just like, hey, there's a lot of spelling errors in these articles, and the person was just like, sorry, I don't know why there's no spelling errors. And then I said, yeah, but I think it's because there's non-UTF-8 characters, that I like called him on it. And he's like, I don't know like what that means. Like, this isn't me. I bought them from someone else, like I was, someone writes them for me and then I sell them. And I'm like, okay. So at that point I realized that I couldn't prove it either way. I'm just like, okay, well, either this person's lying to me or they're not lying, and the person that they got them from actually wrote them with these non-standard characters. And so I was like, fuck, okay. Thanks anyway. Okay, thanks. And then I just thought, well, I'm not going to shop there again, because there's these wacky characters that you have to like rewrite them, the articles, not even to change the wording, but to change the character set. And I was like, I have to rewrite this shit. And I was like, yeah, Google probably is picking up on this and going like, okay, what's this fucking dude is writing these articles, like this website is all written in like some wacky character set. Like that's not going to be good for me. So I was like rewriting all these articles and thinking like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like how did I get tricked into this? And then once I did that, then I still kind of had to rewrite it because it was all plagiarized. So basically I was like double whammied with the fact that I would have had to rewrite this shit anyway. So therefore, basically, I might as well just have written a new article, like buying this. So I fucked myself over essentially by buying these PLRs. So I guess the moral isn't necessarily don't buy PLRs, but at least look out to see if they've been like converted into some bizarro character set that, you're not aware of at first. And the other weird thing that I guess I'll finish off by saying is that at some point, some of those articles started to rank, and because I left a few of them just sort of as they were, because I thought, well, my sites have a lot of posts on them, and so I'm not gonna bother to change this one back. I'll just leave it and see what happens. And that one actually, the one that I left, or there was a couple that I left, they actually started ranking. So I'm like, okay, this is confusing because now I guess I don't know what to think anymore because clearly there's weird characters in this article, but I don't know if Google can see them as such or if Google sees them and doesn't care or whatever. Like it's being read as normal writing because it does appear to be normal. Like does Google care if you cram a bunch of weird characters into your website and like as long as people can read it, it doesn't matter. So I became thoroughly confused by this stuff. And then I also realized that, there's not many people I could really tell this story to because most people I know aren't in marketing, aren't in blogging, and don't know what a PLR is, and don't know what UTF-8 means. And so I just sound like a fucking lunatic talking about this. But anyway, so that's the conspiracy. But it actually turns out that there is something to it because, there was a bunch of these blog posts that were written like this. So the moral of the story, I guess, is just, pay attention to when you buy PLR articles or any articles that are tripping your, triggering your spell checker because it could mean that they're written in some like UTF-9 character set or something. I guess there's also the possibility that, this incidentally happened somehow in this. I don't know if character sets magically just change sometimes when someone changes a file type or something. But anyway, the point is it's some crazy stuff. May not be too important to a lot of people, but it did give me some kind of increased my paranoia last year when this happened. So that's the story about the UTF-8 PLR conspiracy. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're listening to this still, leave me a comment and subscribe and hit the notification bell.